Hi class. This is your first video tutorial in the typography class, and I want to do these just so that there are a lot of ways that you can work, but I think this step-by-step approach can be helpful, and I know students have said that in previous classes that it is really helpful just to watch it be done. And then I also thought I'd upload I've got some students' permission, I'm going to upload some files that have been done beyond what you saw in the book on page 191 and also online. So that is all in your content. So now I'm moving these around, and just remember that you have these major toolboxes in Illustrator, in Photoshop, and in InDesign. And they may operate slightly differently, but generally I call this the digital artist dream workbench. And I am going to go through the basics of Illustrator. We're not going to get too crazy with this. What we're going to start with, and I guess I'm used to having this on the left side, is the module. Now all of these are modules. They're basically shapes, and you could play with any of these shapes. Again, you see in the book that they use the rectangle tool. There it is. In Illustrator, most of this is vector based. Vector is a kind of programming where you are able to enlarge. Your edges are really clean, and they primarily Illustrator works with flat color and gradients. So anyway, what we're going to do in here is get the rectangular tool, and down here are your colors. Now this right here, this little rimmed box, is your stroke tool, and this behind it is your fill tool. So we're going to click on the fill tool, because as you see in the picture in your book, this is black. So when you click on the fill tool, then you can come up and change the color. Now I'm just going to show you that your window menu has all of these panels, and these panels are what you see throughout, all over the place. And anyway, they're right here, and we are going to pick the color panel. Now it's already out, but I want to just get it again because it's sort of hidden. Sometimes I'll do that when I can't really get at a panel. I just uncheck it and come right back in and check it. But nonetheless, it's over here. And if you double click on the tab of the name, then you have the ability to really see it. This is one way to work with color, and because I've clicked on this as the color that the box that I want to change, this is the perfect place for black and white. I'm just going to click on the black section, and that will allow the foreground now to be filled. When I create this box, it'll become black. I do not want a stroke around it. Now it doesn't really matter for this exercise, but just to show you how you handle that, if we make this stroke tool come to the front and click on it, then you can then control that. And down here is where you choose either transparency, gradient, or a fill. I'm going to choose none, and then I just pop that in the front. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, and now we have the rectangle tool ready to go, and I'm going to begin at the top. Now the shift key is important, and I just held it down, and that allows you to click and drag and get the perfect square. And you can either have a perfect square or you can have a rectangle. The module is really up to you. Now this is our first vector shape. This is surrounded by a path. You can see the blue electrical line that indicates a path, and when you take Illustrator, if you haven't, paths are wonderful, and whenever you see these electrical lines, it means that indeed this is vector. And probably the big thing about that is that you get clean lines, and they're enlargeable. Now this green line is a smart guide, and it really helps when you are aligning things, because it'll create invisible or green lines that indicate the center of a shape and the edge, and that's under your view menu. So if you decide you want to have that, that's called a smart guide. Okay, now we're going to put the text in there, and if you're on page 191, you'll be able to sort of see what they're doing and how this is similar. I'm going to click on the type tool, which is right above the square module, and click and create a letter. And when I work in Illustrator, one of the things that's kind of persnickety is that if you're putting the type right on the square right away, it gets really hard to control what you're working on. So I just like to come over here, click, and that's really, really small. So up here you have your character panel, and I'm going to change that up. In fact, one of the things that's a little bit buggy about Illustrator is that you can't, it's a little more cumbersome with changing numbers and such, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm just going to hold down the increase and get this a little bit larger. Because really what we're looking at here is not necessarily readability. The goal is to start to notice not just the letter form, but the negative space that's created around the letter form. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Just have a little fun here with creating your letter. And it's a blinking cursor, so I think I'm going to choose the letter R. Well, I'm changing my mind, and it's not really a big deal, but I'm going to do the letter B. So there's my letter, and it's not a very exciting letter in Myriad Pro, and you can see up here that this, when you have your type tool, it's going to give you all of the options here for type. Well, if you double click, that will highlight the B, or you can click and drag over that. And I might come in here and just go ahead and get something a little bit more exciting. I think I'll just try Rockwell Extra Bold, because Rockwell Extra Bold is a slab serif, meaning that you have vertical stresses and that the tails here are usually, well, they're usually very thick, and sometimes they're as thick as the stem in the B. Right here is your stem, and that right there tells you and indicates it's probably a slab serif. And we've gone over that a little bit, as you can tell, in some of the last week. So there we have it, and I'm just going to make that a little bigger now that I'm looking at it. Now it looks like a white letter. It's not a white letter. It's actually a black letter. You can see that over here. But when you highlight a letter, it's almost like reverses the color. So I'm just keeping track of it. And this is, you know, kind of the cumbersome thing. There are shortcuts, but in a course like this, I'm just going to take it easy. Keep it sort of simple. So let's say, you know, and really the goal, I think, in this case, is to play with making that letter form larger than the module. It's not about reading the whole letter. It's more about creating some beautiful shapes. So I like that. And now, some of the primary tools that we use a ton in Illustrator are these top two. The selection tool, which will move a shape or object. Here we are. This is a letter, but it's also an object. And if you have that move tool, we can bring it in. I'm only going to put it there, though, because as you can see, it's going to disappear on me if I move it in there, and then that gets cumbersome. So before I move it in any further, this would be the moment that I come over here and click on the white. But make sure when you do that the foreground box is in the front, because if the stroker is in the front, you'll get something entirely different. So come on in here and make that white. And now I'm going to move it in. Now, oh, I remember another way that you can size, and forgive me, I'm not in Illustrator as much as I am in Photoshop. You can also enlarge on the corners. Just make sure you always hold down the Shift key. Because if you don't and you get something squishy, that is like the worst thing to do with type. Type should never be squished or scrunched. Keep it the way it is, because the author created it that way, and it's sort of disrespectful to squish and squash type. I'm going to hold that Shift key down and, working from the corner, pull this out. Have fun. You know, there's really no right or wrong. I actually kind of like that right there. I sort of love it. It's cool. I like the shapes, and the whole point of this is to start to look at these beautiful shapes that are being created. This is how we develop logos, is we fool around maybe with the letters that are in the name of the company or whatever, and we not only look at the positive letter form, but of course the negative space around it. And I'm just playing around in here, having a blast, trying to find a shape that speaks to me. And you know, you do the same with yours. So play around. I'm not really caring that Joe Schmo is going to know that this is a letter B or a what it is. That's not really the goal here for your assignment. The goal is just to check out the shapes that are created. Okay, I'm just going to pretend I love that. Woo, that's just, I love that. Now, the next step is to take this letter and actually turn it into what we call it's a character right now, meaning it's a letter form. But what we need to do now in order to move forward with the next step is to turn it into a shape. So we're taking a letter from the type tool, and we're going to turn it more into a shape like we did with the square box. And there are reasons for doing that, and you'll start to see why. What's going to happen actually when we do that, and it's in the type tool called Create Outlines, is that if you notice the white box is around the square of the, emphasizing that this is a letter form. But watch what happens when you do Create Outlines. Yeah, the path goes all the way around this, and now it's not like a letter at all. It is just a shape. It's seeing it as a shape, and we do this a lot. Now, the next step is a lot of times just to show you. You can click off of a path, and you can click right back on it. Off, on, off. Now I'll get the square, this kind of thing. And Illustrator, I find you have to be a little bit more exact. But what you can do is if you click and hold down your mouse and drag, you'll select everything. The character that is actually not a character anymore, but a letter B shape, and also the module. And once you do that, what we're going to be doing is moving into something called Pathfinder. And I have Pathfinder out, but just to show you where it is, again, all these little square boxes are in your window menu. This is their happy home, and this is also true in Photoshop, that those panels live in your window menu. And I'm just going to click off of it and back on just to, there it is, Pathfinder. And when you take Illustrator, they're going to probably go more and more into the Pathfinder because it's a very super cool tool. And what we're going to do here, there's a lot of ways you could work, but what I want to do in this case is I like this one, which allows you to divide up all of these shapes. So what it's going to do is it's going to break all these chunklets off like a pie. Like here's a slice, there's a little slice, here's a little chunklet, there's a little piece, and it'll break it all up into pieces so that you can click on specific ones and delete them, leaving you with just the square module and this piece that's inside it. Let's do that. Boom. You do have to have everything, though, that you want included in there selected by the Move tool, and then we just click and drag around that. So that's happened, and I'm going to click off of it, and now when you click on things, they'll be separated out. Come over here and click on this and off. And now what I'm also going to do, and you can use the Move tool, but I find it to be a little bit cumbersome. I'm going to come into the Direct Selection tool. Now, this tool is your nitpicker. It's going to come in and isolate areas a lot easier than your Selection tool, which overall lets you select areas or objects and move them as a whole. This one is more of your dissector, called the Direct Selection tool. So I come in and I click on this piece. See, now it's able to see that separately. And on your keyboard, press the delete key in the top right corner. Delete. Beautiful. And then I just kind of look for more. So that's the first letter. And that's the way you go about it. Now, you can go ahead and create another square and go from there. And the smart guides, you can see, are really helpful because you can kind of see what the heck you're doing. Also, I might go in here and make sure that this is black. Let me get my color picker out. There we go, black. And so this is going to help me align this. So I can come in and, whoops, sorry, undo. Let me show you. You can just undo that if you ever happen to create something you don't like, which I don't want that. And come in there and undo it. Moving back in, I forgot to hold the Shift key down. Now, I could connect these, but I'm going to just stay a little bit further away. Holding the Shift key down, I'm going to create my next box. and do that